On today's episode, we build the perfect prospect for the 2024 NHL Draft. We'll pick a player for each category coming up on today's episode of Locked On NHL Prospects.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this podcast, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. I'm Hadi Kalakash, joined by Sebastian High. We're both directors of scouting at Dauber Prospects, and we'll be breaking down on today's episode the perfect prospect for the 2024 NHL Draft. Just to explain what we mean by that, we'll take each category of tools or toolkit, skating, stick handling, shooting, all that good stuff, but also offensive sense, defensive sense, and even some more specific stuff like off the wall play, advantage creation. We'll take a player out of the 2024 NHL Draft for each of these categories and build the perfect prospect. So we'll get into that on today's show. But before we get into it, today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. Leave us a comment letting us know what you want us to talk about next. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, please leave us a rate and review and make sure to make us your first listen of the day. So let's get things started here with our puck skills category. That's our first segment. We'll look at skating, stick handling, shooting, passing, and reach. So those are the 5 things we'll be looking at in our first segment here. And we can start with skating. And we had a couple options here, which made it a bit tough. We could have gone for a forward or a defenseman. There's good skaters on both sides in this draft. But we went with a forward. Talk me through the forward that we've chosen here as the perfect skater out of this draft.
Yeah, again, so one of the rules that we outlined for ourselves in this exercise that we can only select a player a single time. So we're not going to see Macklin Celebrini appear 10 times in these 15 picks as a result of that. So for skating, we're going to go with Andrew Basha. He is a winger for the Medicine Hat Tigers in the WHL, and he is incredibly pacey. He uses a ton of lateral movement in his skating routes, especially in transition, and he is electrifyingly quick, but he's also just mechanically a very strong skater. So he kind of was a bit of the best of both worlds for us. The input and output are both strengths in his skating mechanics. And he moves around the ice really comfortably.
Yeah, Basha's a fantastic pace pusher, I would say. Like his thing is he gets the puck and accelerates the pace of play. So Andrew Basha is really a great option in the draft, and is probably going to go in the top 20. I'd be surprised if he slips out of that. Like, there's a lot to love here. He went from a checking player to a kind of productive forward with Medicine Hat over the past year. So there's been a lot of progression there as well. And there's a fallback game with him, which makes him a really good option in the top 20. When we move on to stick handling, which I think for both of us was the easiest one. I mean, we just plugged them in right away. It's Ivan Demidov, and it's not even close. I mean, this kid's ridiculous. The ability to shift players, to play off their heels, to just break ankles, both in transition and in the offensive zone, and the creativity. I mean, he finds solutions to problems that no one would have expected. Ivan Demidov is the best stick handler in this draft, and for me, the best stick handler I've scouted at least since Jack Hughes, and even there's a conversation. His stick handling abilities off the charts, and yeah, I mean, this wasn't even a question for us. He's the only player who received a 10 ranking for one of its tools in our grading system so far. Demidov's the only one with a 10, and it's his stick handling skill. It is off the charts and very Datsukian at times. Like there's a Pavel Datsuk element to his stick handling where he's not necessarily handling the puck in his hip pocket. He's handling it in front of him, kind of dangling players left and right, which isn't conventional, but man, is it effective, right?
It is so effective, and it's also incredibly flashy. The entertainment factor's off the charts here, and we want to give the fans something to cheer for here with the perfect players. So we're definitely siding with Ivan Demidov here for the stick handling. But the next category, the shooting, is almost just as easy, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's Cole Eiserman, and I mean, you can look at anything he does shooting wise and just be really impressed. It's also the versatility for me. He has this fantastic one timer. He hits those corners every time. It's got so much velocity and accuracy. But he's also able to shoot on the backhand. He's also able to curl and drag, to catch and release. He's able to shoot in motion. He's able to shoot from a standstill with the same effectiveness. I love the downforce he puts on his shot. And you see a great shooter from the NTDP with the number 34. I mean, you can tell where he got his inspiration for his shooting ability. And yeah, for sure, Cole Eiserman. There's a lot of questions in his game outside of that, and that's why he's outside of both of our top 10s so far. Because oftentimes it's shooting and not much else. But I've seen a couple games where he's rounded his game out, made a couple passes. He's kind of thought the game at a more advanced level than he has so far with the NTDP. But yeah, Cole Eiserman is by far and away the best goal scorer in this draft, and has the highest goal scoring upside for me as well in this draft. Like there's a world where Eiserman, I mean, if everything works out right, there's a world where Eiserman becomes a 50-goal scorer. I don't think it's, like I said, a lot needs to go right, but I think there's a likelihood of that isn't there with other prospects. Before the passing, we had a bit of difficulty with this one, especially given that we can't choose the same player twice, and Eiserman and Celebrini could have easily gone in here. Definitely not Eiserman. Yeah. New defenseman here, our first defenseman out of this exercise here. So talk me through Zeev Buium and why he's passing so effective.
Zeev Buium is really fun. He is incredibly escapable. I think that's probably his biggest strength on the ice. He's able to get a puck and being just surrounded by opponents, and whether he's wriggling his way out of it as a puck handler, and he's quite escapable with pretty strong outside edges. He can still work on his explosiveness a little bit, but it's also the passing ability. He can be under intense pressure and very quickly be able to spot an outlet pass and immediately execute it onto the tape. He's a fantastic passer of the puck, and we've seen the playmaking ability just shine so far this season. Like last night, I sat down and watched all 49 minutes of the 49-minute appearance where he played against UMass, and it was entertaining throughout. The fact that I sat through all 49 minutes, I was pretty impressed with Zeev in that facet. But just a fantastic passer of the puck, so intelligent, scans for teammates and pressure so well, and is a great playmaker from the blue line. Like we're kind of combining passing and playmaking here in this category, but Zeev Buium is exceptional in both facets, both mechanically as a passer, but also the decision-making behind it and getting himself into positions where he can make those high-danger passes as well.
Yeah, and the passing is so proactive with Buium as well. It's never kind of reactive, just get the puck out type of passing. He's got his next idea in mind before he gets the puck. And for me, Zeev Buium is the best breakout creator in this draft, not just through his passing, but his ability to retrieve pucks, get off the wall, and find his next option quickly. That's what puts him at the top of the list for me for the passing categories, especially that breakout ability. It is ridiculous. And yeah, an NCAA freshman playing for a top team like Denver getting 49 minutes. I don't care if it was an overtime. That is absurd. That makes no sense. It was
double overtime, but still.
Sure.
He played 10 minutes a period for 5 periods. Like what?
It's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. The last but not least for our first segment, we'll look at the reach and puck catching ability. And this is no question either. This one was super easy. It's Caden Lindstrom, a 6'4", 215-pound forward who's playing center for the first time of his career this year with the Medicine Hat Tigers in the NCAA and the WHL. The reach and puck catching ability are absurd. First of all, I mean, the reach, obviously, you're 6'4", and you've got the kind of lankiness that Lindstrom has. You're going to have a long stick and a lot of reach to be able to make your plays. But it's not just the reach in terms of the size and the length of a stick. It's also how far away from his body he's able to control the puck, and how good he is at catching pucks in motion at high speeds, sometimes even with his back to the puck as it's coming to him, and it just sticks to his stick and he just moves forward. His area of influence around him with his stick is ridiculous, and that's something that really, really stands out in Lindstrom's game. That's why at the start of the season, some people had him in their top 5, and people were like, this is a bit of a reach. He seems more like a 15 to 25 guy to me. At this point of the season, though, there is zero doubt. Caden Lindstrom is a top 5 pick, and he is on almost every ranking. Like, there's there's not a lot of rankings you'll see out there where he's not in the top 5 or at least in the top 10. But that wraps things up for our first segment. We'll get into our second where we look at the more mental stuff. We'll look at offensive sense, defensive sense, composure, off-the-wall play, advantage creation, and rush defense in our second segment right after these messages from our sponsors at Sleeper.
The NHL season is almost over with the playoffs just on the horizon, but you can still get in on the action with Sleeper. Sleeper is our number one choice here at the Locked On NHL Podcast Network for all of your daily fantasy hockey needs. That's because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your money in daily fantasy hockey contests. And all you need to do to win that is to correctly predict the outcome of 8 specific player stats. And you can get really creative with that if you so desire, whether you want to take the swings on some of the big stars in the league, whether it's Nikita Kucherov putting up 3 assists a game or Nathan MacKinnon still scoring a point in a Colorado Avalanche home game, or maybe stay more in line with the topic of this specific podcast and take some swings on NHL young guns like Connor Bedard or Brock Faber. The choice is yours with Sleeper. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability.
Alrighty, so moving on to our second segment, we'll be looking at the mental stuff. So we'll look at hockey sense, both offensively and defensively, composure as well, off-the-wall play, advantage creation, and rush defense. We'll look at all that back-to-back. We'll start off with the offensive sense, and again, Celebrini could have gone in here, but we chose to keep him for a more specific aspect of hockey sense, which we'll get to in a second. But we chose for general offensive sense to go with Berkly Catton. And Berkly Catton is just amazing offensively. The dynamism is great, but what really stands out in this game is that sixth sense for offensive space. He seems to just kind of predict where the space will open up on the ice, and he attacks those pockets really well, which works really well with his lack of size. I think that overall, Catton really needed to develop this and adapt this kind of ability in his game in order to be as effective as he is. And watching him with Spokane this year, I mean, there's so much creativity and advanced reads in this game, like not just on the puck but off the puck, but it's especially evident on the puck. His ability to kind of play passes into space for his teammates, his ability to kind of see these lanes that no one else sees, is just ridiculous. And yeah, that's the big reason why he's producing so much in the WHL. But for defensive sense, this was a bit more contentious, right? We had a bit more trouble kind of pinning down our player for this. But talk me through the player we went with at the end of the day here for defensive sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the reason it was difficult was because no defenseman in the class necessarily grabbed our attention for this slot. So we actually went with a forward, and a forward that I really wanted to get into one of the mental components of this perfect player, and that's Konsta Helenius, a highly, highly intelligent center playing full-time in Liga this season and producing very well, but everything he does that's a positive impact on the ice flows through the way he reads the game. And he combines that with an impressive motor as well. But the defensive sense is really well attuned already. He's already one of the smarter defensive players on his team in the professional context, and constantly scanning for threat, constantly adjusting his position, constantly making sure that his stick is in the most dangerous passing lane, and rarely loses his assignment or switches assignments randomly. He's very deliberate and controlled in his defensive output. And he's not a player that I would personally want my team to have to play defensively. So he's our choice for best defensive sense.
Yeah, for sure. And that brings us to our third component of the mental aspect here in our second segment. It's going to be composure. And for this one, it was super easy for me. Like, there was no doubt about this. It's Zane Parekh, the average-sized right-handed defenseman playing in Saginaw in the OHL. We could have gone with him for many categories, including shot, including passing, including stick handling, and offensive sense. But the composure with Parekh is heads and shoulders above everyone. Like, he has zero panic. He doesn't panic with the puck. He doesn't panic without it. And it can sometimes actually be a problem how composed he is. Like, sometimes he's in the defensive zone. He's being closed on from 3 directions, and he's just sitting there trying to evaluate the next option rather than just throwing the puck out. But yeah, on the puck, it is ridiculous how calm he is, both at the offensive blue line, in the neutral zone when he's pinching or defending the rush, but also in zone, his ability to just stay calm and find a breakout pass is ridiculous. Like, it's top of this class and it's not even close. So anyone who drafts St. Perek will be very happy with that element of his game at times, but also very frustrated with it at times. But yeah, I have him third overall in my rankings, and I'm fairly certain he's going to be going outside the top 10 because some outlets are calling his defensive game abysmal. I would not go that far at all. I think his defensive game is not bad, but we'll see how that goes on draft day. Moving forward to the off-the-wall play, and this one was another really easy one. Talk me through TJ Ginla's off-the-wall play.
He is violent. He loves the physical component of the game, and we could have also plugged it in for highest motor. There were a couple categories where Tej fit in really nicely, but in terms of off-the-wall play, I think one of the big reasons that I've been a massive fan of his off-the-wall play this season is that he's constantly just initiating contact, separating opponent from the puck, and then he just has space to work with. And when TJ Ginla has space to work with, he can create some pretty special things. Like his handling and playmaking games have really improved a ton this season, and he's starting to use that space as an outlet to leverage those tools. But yeah, he's just constantly creating space for himself, and by being a little bit of not very fun player to play against in the offensive zone and along the boards. And with time, I'm sure he'll be able to leverage that a bit more defensively. We already see the motor like being used defensively, perhaps to a fault. But as he gains a bit more control of that defensive side of the game and of the decision making he makes off puck in the defensive zone, I think his off the wall ability is going to be a massive strength in all three zones. And whichever team ends up drafting him will really appreciate that specific element that he brings to the table.
For sure, absolutely. And just to specify, when we mean off the wall play, what we mean is the ability to take pucks off the wall, gain the middle, and make a play. For me, TJ Ginla's the best in this draft in that category. In terms of advantage creation, which is our next category here, Macklin Celebrini finally makes an appearance. We had to put him in somewhere. He could have gone anywhere, really. But the advantage creation with Macklin Celebrini is next level. He does it off the rush. He does it on the cycle. He does it in the defensive zone on the breakout. Just so many different ways in which he creates many 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s all over the ice. It starts in the defensive zone by cycling low, offering an option for his defenseman to break the puck out, creating a mini 3-on-2 advantage for his team down low. But then after that, in transition, he is so good at drawing a player in and opening up ice for another player. He's also really good at kind of crowding one side of the ice, where his teammate is one-on-one with a defenseman, which creates another mini 2-on-1 on zone entries. But also off the cycle, his positioning, his hockey sense is off the charts, and that's the thing. He's just constantly creating advantages. And playing with a player like that is effortless. It's so easy. So whoever ends up on Macklin Celebrini's line is going to get a lot of rush chances because he just constantly creates these mini situations where he either creates a partial breakaway for a teammate or creates a mini 2-on-1 for them. So yeah, the advantage creation with Macklin Celebrini is off the charts, and that's why he's one of the best, if not the best player in the NCAA this season. But last but not least, rush defense. We're going to look at this real quick, and in this situation, there's really no doubt it's Anton Salayev. Talk me through what makes Anton Salayev such an effective rush defenseman.
It's the tools. Like with Salayev, it's not the consistency. It's not the decision-making behind it. Like, that's definitely still a bit more of a work in progress. And part of the reason why he's so often being lauded as being a very raw project as a draftable player. But Salayev covers so much ice in just about like 1 or 2 strides. He's so fluid on his feet. He has such an incredibly long reach. He's 6'7", and he can patrol a massive area in the defensive zone and also close gaps with incredible aggression and quickness, and do so at unpredictable moments. And then when he closes that gap, he can use his physicality to overwhelm the rusher. And yeah, he just has the overall toolkit to make for an elite rush defender at the next level. It is not yet there on a consistent basis. I wouldn't call him the smartest rush defender in this class, but in terms of raw upside on that front, and also just like the flashes of brilliance in rush defense, I think that he was a pretty straightforward bet in this category for us.
For sure. Like, the combination of skating and size is unlike anyone I've ever scouted. Like, it's ridiculous. Even Owen Power had more limitations to his skating than Anton Salayev does. And Anton Salayev's 2 inches taller, 3 inches taller at the same age. It's just ridiculous. The skating size is just, it's not fair. Like he's going to be the best gap closer in the NHL at his best. But it's just outside of that, what else does he bring? I see him more as a second pair defenseman, but we'll see how that goes. That's it for our second segment. Moving on, we'll be looking at kind of more physical elements. So we're going to be looking at the motor, the physicality, the dynamism, the net front presence, and the athleticism. We'll choose a top player for each of these categories after these messages from our sponsors at eBay Motors.
Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophies, also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks to exhaust kits, LED headlights, and far more. Whether you're to speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what it is that you're looking for with eBay Motors. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, which is available to U.S. customers only, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply.
Alrighty, so closing things off here with the physical aspects here, we're going to build the perfect prospect on the physical side. We'll start off with the motor. And we can start off here because, I mean, there are a couple options here as well. Even Macklin Celebrini could have gone in here again, but, we had a couple options here with Michael Brandzak-Newgard. Jet Lachenko could have gone in here, but we ended up going with Tanner Howe because it's just such a standout element of his game. Tanner Howe is the captain of the Regina Pats in the WHL. If you recognize the name of the team, it was Connor Bedard's team last year. But now Tanner Howe's pretty much on an island. He's playing first-line center kind of by default because he's not a natural center. But yeah, the motor's off the charts. He uses it to get back defensively, outwork players along the boards. I mean, there's just so much there in terms of motor. We often compare him to a certain player. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, I think that dogged determination and relentless motor is very Brendan Gallagher-esque in many ways, and there are definitely some stylistic links between those two. And I mean, if Tanner Howe can hit the ceiling of Brendan Gallagher, I think whoever snaps him up in the second round is going to be giddy. But we'll see how that ends up being like an overall player comp. But at the bare minimum, in terms of the motor and how he leverages that motor, there's definite comparisons to Brendan Gallagher.
For sure. That brings us to our next category here. And it's going to be physicality. And we had a couple options here. There was a couple defensemen that could have gone in here. We're kind of splitting hairs at this point, but for me, the combination of raw strength and willingness to use it, it's Sam Dickinson for me. Sam Dickinson is a left-handed defenseman playing for the London Knights in the OHL, and Dickinson is violent, just absolutely violent. He reminds me a bit of a kind of a jacked up Caden Gooley, where he's just, I mean, he's in your face on every rush defense attempt. He's going to look to hit you hard if you go down his side. He makes it really difficult to want to create off the rush when he's on the ice. And yeah, that's for me the standout. He's also extremely powerful, both in his upper body and his lower body. He's able to shrug off forwards really easily, even forwards that are his size or even bigger and stronger, 2 years older, 3 years older, he doesn't care. He's going to push you off the puck really easily. And I also like the lower body power, the amount of force he can create with each stride, the way he shields the puck. I mean, he has these tree trunk thighs that you can't put your stick around. So when he sticks his knee out, it's over. You're not getting the puck. And then we move on to dynamism, and we had a couple options here as well, right? But there's one player that stands out that we hadn't put yet, who really deserves the mention in this category. So talk me through who we have for dynamism here.
Yeah, Trevor Connelly. The skill level with this player is just unbelievable. The way he's able to leverage his like myriad of high-end tools to just create offense in a really raw form is so impressive. He
Yeah.
uses like gear shifts, like in terms of like speed differentials, really intelligently to create space for himself. He's electric with the puck on his stick. He loves just handling the puck up ice, loves having some space to work with. But when he's more constrained in terms of space, he's such a mobile puck handler with a really unlocked top hand. He doesn't need that space to create. And in any situation with the puck on his stick, he will try to create offense. And he's very effective at doing so and has just gotten better and better and better at that at the USHL level this season. And in terms of just raw dynamic skill and ability and consistent creation, even though other elements of his game are less consistent, Trevor Connelly is certainly a standout in this facet.
100%. And that brings us to net front presence. And we had a couple options here as well, but we went to the player who's not getting enough love this season, and it's Cole Baudouin of the Barrie Colts in the OHL. And he is just such an effective net front player. It's not the only thing to his game, but I think what really stands out in his net front presence is his timing. He's really good at spinning off of checks right as a shot comes in. So let's say he's got a defenseman on his back with a stick along his back in a cross-check position. He's really good at either spinning under or spinning around the player as the shot comes in order to present a stick for a rebound. That's a great element of his game, but also timing in the sense of how he swings by the slot, how he swings by the blue paint. The timing of his rushes into the paint are really good off the puck when his teammates are cycling the puck up high, when his defenseman's getting ready to shoot. He's really good at timing his rushes to the blue paint with those shots in order to get deflections, to get rebounds. I did want to give an honorable mention to Simon Zetter, who's really good at this as well. I think Zetter's intelligence when it comes to it is a bit better, but the raw power, the raw effectiveness of his rushes to the net, those kinds of things, I think that Cole Baudouin definitely has the upper hand on that side. And yeah, we'll probably be doing a prospect spotlight on Cole Baudouin soon because he deserves that love. He's a really good player. And last but not least, we'll look at the athleticism. And this is another category we had a lot of choices to go with, but one stood just ahead above everyone else.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a player that we haven't mentioned yet that you're probably wondering when we'll mention. Well, this is it. It's Artyom Levshunov. And Levshunov is incredibly athletic, right?
Oh my God, yeah. Like he looks like a 25-year-old in college hockey and he's 18.
Yep.
Like he in terms of every physical tool that we measure, that we look for as scouts, he is very, very impressive in those facets. He's so powerful. He can play with such violence. But beyond that, the explosiveness, the refinement in the small physical aspects of the game over the course of the season has been really, really incredible. And yeah, he's going to win a lot of the athleticism awards at the NHL Combine, and I'd be surprised if he didn't feature in a ton of those.
Yeah, for sure. And honorable mention to Carter Yakimchuk and Jet Lachenko could have gone in here as well, but Artyom Levshunov, I mean, one of the things I look for athleticism is how much space he can cover in one stride, and I think Levshunov's the best in this draft. Him, Dickinson, Yakimchuk, yeah, Salayev as well, but like, yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. But like, it's just with Levshunov, it surprises you because like he isn't 6'7", 200 pounds.
Yeah.
He's 6'3" and a decent size, but like for me, it's just the amount of power he gets behind those legs is just ridiculous. But that wraps things up for today's show. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. Leave us a comment letting us know what you want us to talk about next, what players you want us to cover. If you have any questions at all about the 2024 draft, leave them down below. If you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, make sure to make us your first listen of the day and leave us a rating review. It helps the channel out a lot, whether that's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to this. For your second listen of the day, make sure to check out Locked On Sports Today. They got all your news and updates about what's going on in the sports world on a 24/7 YouTube channel. And make sure to tune in for our next shows as we continue our prospects coverage for the month of April. This has been Hadi Kalikesh, Director of North American Scouting for Dobber Prospects, with Sebastian High, Director of European Scouting for Dobber Prospects and Head Scout, and we hope to see you next time.